Let's move on now to the Denver Broncos and our 2023 NFL Draft review. But if you have not already, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to get notified when we create new Denver Broncos content or just general NFL content about the Broncos. Ryan and I, we have a goal of trying to get to 2,000 subscribers by the start of the 2023 NFL season. It's the easiest way to help us reach our goal, and it's a good way for you to get notified when there's new Broncos content. Ryan, that being said, let's get into it. So the Denver Broncos did not have to do too much in the draft
Nope.
this year. They technically had a second round pick, but they came in without a second round pick. But we're going to get into that in here in a second. Obviously, they're not the results that Broncos fans wanted last year. They've heard that a bunch. So that's definitely affected my overall grade for them because they didn't have a first or second this year coming in. And Seattle thanks them for that. But I still think that there's hope for optimism. I think that there was just a bunch of stuff going on. Russell Wilson obviously did not have a good career at all. He looked awful. But if there's anyone that might be able to
ship year, his career so far has been pretty good.
Oh, yeah, his career. Sorry, a good year. Correct.
Yeah.
Sean Payton, I'm very curious because it definitely seems like he has a no BS attitude. Russell Wilson's throwing coaches and team are not going to be allowed into the building. It's if I'm reporting that correctly, I know that they are not going to be at camp at least.
No, yeah, he told him that he's going to work with the team's coaches.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge step in the right, especially with all of the stories about him as a leader. So I say all that stuff. And then it gives me kind of a vote of confidence as well, then that maybe that can be turned around with who they selected first. Not only did they select Marvin Mims with their first overall pick, they traded up to go get him.
Yeah.
And he had some production. He improved every single year during his time at Oklahoma. I think he had over 1,000 receiving yards last year. And I think he can fit into this system well, and he's a speedy, quick, shifty receiver. So let's get to all the picks now. But starting off with that one, it gives me a vote of confidence, I think, on kind of the direction of where this new coaching regime wants to go.
No, yeah. So I liked Marvin Mims as a player. I feel like that's a fairly crowded room in Denver right now. You look at Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, then they also have KJ Hamler. It's an interesting first pick, but I think he's a really solid depth piece. He has an interesting style. He's 5'11", 185, but he primarily plays on the outside, and he's actually really good in contested catch situations. And he's one of those guys, like, you don't know really how he does it, like, because he doesn't do anything super special, but he does just always get open. And that is a really nice trait to have.
Well, and I think it's one thing too. The receiving room is crowded right now, but that could easily change. Tim Patrick is getting into his late 20s, coming off an ACL injury. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy have been there for several years and would absolutely see that maybe they move on from one of them, if not both.
Yeah.
KJ Hamler, yes, he is a receiver in the room. I think there is definitely a lot of potential, but it's hard to really criticize last year because it absolutely was not his fault for any lack of production. Not saying he had lack of production, but there's a lot of external factors that were out of his control. So there's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But I think it's safe to say though, is like I don't think Marvin Mims is going to be the fifth receiver by the start of the first season. I feel like one, if not two of those guys might not be there.
That is I do have a couple qualms with this pick. One, you're already picking him into a crowded wide receiver room. And that's your first pick. You do have some other needs. They did address edge rusher here in a second, but then you also have limited picks, so then you trade up to get him, which I somewhat disagree with. But then also too, he's pretty limited in what he did in college, and a lot of his hype is projections and what offensive coordinators think they can do, and I think that's really when people get into trouble with a wide receiver specifically, is they look at a guy who is able to be successful against weaker defenses who run traditional defensive sets in college. And they're like, well, if I could just teach him how to do this, then he would be great. And it's like, well, it doesn't always work like that.
Well, and that's a fair point too, because if I'm going to sing this praise, I also though need to agree with that point as well, is because that was one of my criticisms of Quentin Johnson, of people saying that he's the best receiver, and they're like, yes, but he's going up against these Big 12 secondary and
Yeah,
Big 12 just historically, not saying it's always true, but historically just not
not that good.
good defenders. And so Marvin
Yeah.
Mims is going up against the same competition. So we'll have to see. I do find it interesting that they traded up for him. So, but let's move on to the rest of their picks, though. Drew Sanders, we talked about this one before. I think he has a lot of potential, a lot of upside. I think he can fit into kind of what the Broncos are looking for. Very speedy, rangy linebacker as well.
Yeah.
Riley Moss was an interesting one. You were talking about that before. What are your thoughts on the Riley Moss pick?
So I had a day 3 grade on him. He's not the most athletic corner. He can be sticky when he plays press man coverage and he's able to create contact and slow down receivers. But sometimes at the Senior Bowl, he did get beat off the line and just didn't look quite as sharp as I think he would want to be. A lot of people have him projected to be more of a safety in the NFL, and yeah, I don't know. I think that was a little bit of a reach, especially you don't have another pick for 100 picks.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of those.
And then you pick a safety again at that.
Yeah, exactly.
100th pick.
Yeah.
That's fair.
JL Skinner is a completely different player. Riley Moss, I think, is 6 foot, like 195, and JL Skinner is like 6'4", 215. So he's more of a box safety. But but I actually like JL Skinner as a box safety. I think he can bring some value there. And to get that in the 6th round is pretty good. And then Alex Forsyth, center from Oregon, I think is decent value. I think he can develop into a solid backup, but nothing more than that.
Yeah. So. No, I could see with all those, especially even going to Riley Moss, it's like I can see what they like about him. I can also see your points as well. You are picking 100 picks away, so you want to make sure that you get a player that you like. And so I could absolutely see that being like there are 10 guys on the board, and they're like, we just like this guy better. So, but it's very little kind of grade off of, and some of it then also too is based off the Russell Wilson trade. So moving on to the grades, for me, I gave them a C. I think the Marvin Mims pick is a decent one, just considering where he's at. I think he can help. He seemed to be able to create a lot of separation, but also to your point that maybe that's just Big 12 defenses. And based off of last year and the Broncos offense, they need someone that can just get open on their own immediately, and that might be able to help them out in the future. I also think some of the other picks that they got as well were decent upside picks. Not this is in the bottom tier of the 2023 NFL drafts because of Russell Wilson trade, lack of really overall picks and value. But in general, though, I didn't hate the people that they got.
No, yeah, and I'm kind of on the same train as you there. Like they only submitted 5 picks. I thought the Marvin Mims pick, while I like the player, I am unsure of the actual fit, putting him into a crowded wide receiver room. I think he's probably your wide receiver 4 right now. And it's like, so he's going to be in rotational snaps. I just felt like at that point, you could have gotten something that could have provided a little bit more value. I like the Drew Sanders pick. The Riley Moss pick for me was definitely a little bit of a reach. And then the other two, I mean, are late day 3 picks. So I gave him a C-. I have been definitely more stingy than Tyler has been. And so I actually think the C- is pretty good for this draft. I think that's what I about gave the Ravens, which I think had a pretty similar draft.
So, yeah, and actually this was worse than I gave the Ravens a little bit of a better draft. Just because they had a 1st-round pick, to be honest. So
that was their only good pick in my opinion, anyways. But yeah. So all in all, I really like what the Broncos have now. I think Russell Wilson getting Sean Payton is going to be a pretty solid transition from Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton. That's a huge upgrade. And then I think they'll have a bounce back year. I find it hard to believe that Sean Payton is really going to let this team fall to being a top 5 pick again. Well, they weren't a top 5 pick because they traded it, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. We'll have to see. I mean, fair, yes, but I'm also getting like potential Mike Ditka to the Saints type vibes as well, where this legendary coach that comes in and it's like he's going to fix the organization, and it just does not pan out.
Yeah, it
does
it
not
doesn't
work.
happen.
There's I think they had to fire Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that it was purely his fault. There was definitely some clear leadership, locker room issues as well. And like it was the same thing every day. And that offense just could not bounce forward. And I'm just curious to see how Russ is going to bounce back. I'm just very curious to see how Russ is going to bounce back, because there was definitely coaching error decisions, like the Colts Broncos game. Colts should not have won that game. Broncos, it was a horrible decision in the fourth quarter to not kick a field goal, go up, make them have to come down, kick a touchdown. Then on top of that, Russ compiles on that and then throws a pick. So it's like it was just a horrible situation. Just it's like encapsulated, like I think the poor coaching and then also the poor quarterback play for the entire year. So very curious what Sean Payton does to, like, as he comes in, what changes are going to be made. Now Russ is going to react to it.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. I'm very excited to see it. I'm pretty sure Denver Broncos fans are excited to see it. So let's go ahead and wrap up the Denver Broncos draft recap there. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Broncos draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think they're going to be good in 2023? Let us know down below. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.